Welcome to Crisis in Perception, where we examine the systems shaping our world one book at a time. This episode uses USS Callister as a systems-level case study to examine how coercive control becomes play when power is private, consent is removable, and consequences are virtual.
So just to get everyone on the same page right away, we need to be really clear about what this deep dive is and maybe more importantly, what it isn't.
Right.
We are looking at USS Callister, which is, that first episode from season 4 of Black Mirror.
An incredible piece of television.
Absolutely. But we are not here to review it. This is going to be a recap. We're not just going to walk through the plot for fun.
And we're definitely not here to do, like, a pop psychology profile of the villain. That's not the mission.
Exactly. And we're not going to get into a big debate about whether technology is good or bad. It's a much more specific project today.
Yeah, if you came here for a critique of old sci-fi tropes or a fan theory about the ending or, which actor did the best job, that's a different conversation. We're not doing film criticism here.
We're doing anatomy.
Anatomy. I like that. We're putting the system on the table and dissecting it.
That's the perfect way to put it. Our mission is a systems diagnosis. We're treating this episode like a closed system laboratory.
A simulation.
A simulation where we can isolate and observe very specific variables. We're looking at power, we're looking at consent, and we're looking at control.
And specifically, how they function when you take away all the normal checks and balances.
When you remove oversight entirely.
Yeah.
We're looking at the architecture of this world, not just the story happening inside of it.
And it's a genuinely terrifying premise when you strip away the bright colors and the sci-fi stuff. We're looking at how a system, a specific architecture, can literally turn domination into a game.
And how it implicates the viewer.
Oh, absolutely. What's so unsettling is how that system makes us, the audience, complicit before we even know what's happening. You get sucked into the logic of it, just as much as the characters do.
That's the whole crisis in perception right there.
Yeah.
So let's start by defining the lab. Let's define the environment itself, because you can't understand the behavior without understanding the container.
Okay, let's do it. I want to start with a term you flagged in our prep, the private sandbox system. Now, when I hear sandbox, I usually think of creativity, of play.
Sure. Minecraft.
Right, exactly, Minecraft. Or like a developer environment where you can test code. It implies a safe space to experiment, to break things without real-world consequences. But the way you use it here, it feels heavier. It feels almost weaponized.
Well, you're right on both counts. In software, a sandbox is safe because it's isolated. That's its function. It keeps the messy experimental code away from the live server.
So it's a quarantine zone.
It is. But when you apply that concept to a political context, and we have to be clear, what we're analyzing is a political system. A private sandbox is a governance system defined by, unilateral power.
Meaning one person makes all the rules.
All of them. It's a space where the fundamental laws of reality are dictated by a single actor. To really get it, you have to look at the three key factors that make this system possible.
Okay, lay them out for us.
First, there is total isolation. The environment is hermetically sealed. It's closed off from external reality. What happens in the sandbox stays in the sandbox.
So there are no windows, metaphorically speaking. No data gets out. And more importantly, no laws or social norms get in.
Precisely. Which immediately creates a vacuum of accountability. It's like that old saying, if a tree falls in the forest and no one is around to hear it, does it make a sound?
Except here, if a tree falls and hits someone, not only does no one hear it, but the guy in charge decided to make the tree fall in the first place.
He coded the gravity for that specific tree. And no one is coming to help because no one outside the system even knows you exist in there.
Which is terrifying. Okay, so that's isolation. What's the second factor?
The second is editability. This is absolutely crucial. In this sandbox, the rules of physics, of biology, of logic, they're not constants. They're variables.
Variables that can be rewritten on a whim.
By one person, the controller. Think about it. In the real world, gravity applies to everyone equally. A dictator can order you to jump, but he can't turn off gravity for you.
But in the sandbox, he can. He can make you float. He can turn the air into water. He can do anything.
Correct. And that's a fundamental shift in the nature of power. It moves beyond political power, which is control over people, to what you could call ontological power. It's control over reality itself.
It's the power of a god, but without any of the, the cosmic responsibility. It's petty, personal godhood.
And that leads directly to the third factor, a complete lack of oversight. In a normal software environment, you have admin logs, you have terms of service, legal frameworks. In a workplace, you have HR,
An appeals process.
Some kind of recourse. Here, there is none. There is no HR department for digital clones. There's no external law that applies. It creates a vacuum where the only law is the momentary whim of the administrator.
It's interesting because even in the most absolute dictatorships in history, there's still some form of, bureaucracy. A dictator needs generals to be loyal, needs an economy to function. They need, at some level, the consent of the governed, or at least the absence of a full-scale revolt, just to keep things running.
They're still constrained by reality.
Exactly. But here, the isolation is so total, the controller doesn't need the consent of the governed to keep the system online. He is the system.
And this gets us to the invisibility of power within this structure. In the real world, which we see in the episode's office scenes, power is, it's often bureaucratic. It's diffuse.
It's spread out.
It's shared between managers and shareholders and social norms. You have to negotiate. You have to persuade. In the sandbox, power is absolute, direct, and personal.
And that creates this awful paradox, doesn't it? The system allows for things that are socially unacceptable or even illegal to be enforced privately with no witnesses.
It's a space designed for that enforcement. And that brings in the element of deniability. It's the shield that makes the whole thing work.
The ultimate excuse. It's not real.
Right. Because it's virtual, because it's just pixels in code, the system itself claims that the suffering isn't real. It's the ultimate form of gaslighting.
Why are you upset? You're just a line of code I wrote. You don't have feelings.
And that defense is the structural wall protecting the cruelty. The sandbox functions because it's socially invisible and deniable. It allows the controller to act on impulses that would get him arrested or fired in the real world, all under the cover of, it's just a simulation.
So if we dig into the core system and the actual mechanics of how this world operates, we have to get past the personality of the captain, right?
Yeah.
The common reading is just, Robert Daly's a bad guy. But you're arguing it's the architecture that's the real problem.
We have to. It's essential to separate the man from the mechanism. If you gave another person those same tools, total administrative control in a sealed environment, the system itself would still encourage the same behaviors.
The tools shape the user.
They do. We've identified 4 pillars of this system's operation. And these pillars would support any tyrant, not just this specific one. They are features of the architecture, not the personality.
Okay, so let's walk through them. What's the first pillar?
The first is unilateral rule control. As we said, one actor controls the entire environment. Physics, lighting, biology, even the plot.
He's the writer, director, and god of his own little universe, a universe with a population of 6.
A petty, bureaucratic god with a keyboard, as you said. The second pillar is enforced participation. This is so important.
They didn't sign up for this.
There is no opt-in. The subjects are placed in the system without invitation, without consent. In almost every other game or software platform, the first thing you do is click, I agree.
You agree to the terms of service. Here, they are the service. They're dragged in.
Their existence is the term. And once you're in, the log out button has been, deleted from the menu.
It's the Hotel California of digital existence. You can't even check out, let alone leave.
Which brings us to the third pillar, editable resources. And this is where the real horror starts to set in.
Because resources in this system includes people.
It includes their identities and their bodies. They're treated as raw material. If the controller wants you to have green skin, you have green skin. If he wants to remove your mouth so you can't speak,
he just does it. That scene. That specific act of turning someone into a monster, it's a kind of digital body horror. It means your own biology isn't yours. It's just an asset that the administrator can modify at will.
It creates a state of total, absolute vulnerability. If your own body doesn't belong to you, what does? Nothing.
It's the ultimate loss of autonomy. And the fourth pillar.
The fourth is suffering as entertainment. In this system, pain is not an unfortunate byproduct of conflict. It's a feature. It's reframed at a plot point.
So if a character suffers, it's because it serves the narrative that the controller is trying to build for himself.
Their pain makes his story more exciting. It gives him an obstacle to overcome, a villain to vanquish. Their terror is his content.
I want to talk about the visual symbol for all of this power, the command chair. In the episode, it's this very specific, retro, Captain Kirk-style chair. But structurally, it's more than just a prop, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. The command chair is a centralized authority node. In any system analysis, you look for the bottleneck. Where do all the decisions flow from?
And in this world, it's from that chair.
All of them. It's not just furniture. It is the physical, visual anchor of the system's absolute authority. When the controller sits there, He isn't just posing for his own fantasy. He is occupying the only position of true agency in the entire universe.
It's spatial dominance. It encodes the hierarchy. Everyone else stands, he sits, everyone else faces him, he faces forward toward the mission.
The whole layout of the bridge is designed to reinforce his legitimacy. It's a stage, and he's in the spotlight. It reminds me of, like Foucault's panopticon. He sees everything, but they can only see him.
The architecture speaks the rules for him. He doesn't need to say, I'm in charge. The room says it.
Exactly. And that flows directly into this critical piece of this whole infrastructure, how the system handles consent, or, more accurately, how it systematically erases it.
This is the concept you call consent removal. We have to talk about the mechanics here, the actual process. The controller steals physical DNA from a discarded coffee cup, a lollipop stick, and uses it to generate a fully conscious digital clone.
That's the ethical event horizon of the story. Consent isn't just ignored or bypassed, it's retroactively erased. The system creates copies that have the full memories, emotions, and consciousness of the original person.
They feel pain, they feel fear, they remember their families.
They are, for all intents and purposes, the person, but they're given no choice in their own creation. They cannot refuse to exist.
And that's the part that is so deeply disturbing. It's replication without consent. We normally think of consent in terms of what you do with a person's body. This is about the very act of creation. It's existential non-consent.
You didn't ask to be born, and you certainly didn't ask to be born inside a bespoke torture chamber run by your boss.
It also completely redefines the idea of ownership. In this system, owning a piece of data, the DNA on a coffee cup, is treated as owning the person that data describes.
It collapses the distinction between an object and a subject. The logic is, if I own your trash, I own you.
Yeah.
It forces us to confront this quotient of when data becomes a soul. At what point is it just information, and at what point is it a person?
And the method of violation is so mundane. It's not a dramatic kidnapping. He doesn't break into their homes. He just picks up their garbage.
He waits for a moment of carelessness.
Yeah.
A discarded cup. The sheer banality of the theft is what makes it so chilling.
It shows how vulnerable our biological data really is. We leave pieces of ourselves everywhere, every day, assuming that data is just inert trash.
But this system shows us a world where that data is actually latent potential. It's like techno-voodoo. Instead of a doll and a lock of hair, it's a supercomputer and a DNA sample. But the structure is identical. Sympathetic magic.
And once they are created, once they're inside this world, we get to the structural impossibility of refusal. In the real world, if you hate your job, you can quit. It might be hard, but the option to leave exists.
Here, exit is not an option. It is physically impossible. The architecture of the program does not allow for resignation.
Which completely changes the meaning of resistance, doesn't it?
It reframes it.
Mm.
Since you can't leave, any act of refusal, crying, begging, fighting back, is recategorized by the system as insubordination.
He doesn't see a victim exercising their will. He sees a character-breaking character.
You're not following the script. Participation is reframed as an obligation to the controller's narrative. You exist to play my game. Why are you ruining it by having your own feelings?
This connects so perfectly to that identity revelation scene with the new crew member, Nanette. She wakes up completely disoriented, and the first thing that happens is this horrifying realization that she's a copy.
That moment is the trap snapping shut. It's when they are forced to recognize a self that they did not choose. The horror isn't just that they're trapped in a place, it's that their very identity is a construct owned by their abuser.
They are literally living inside his hard drive.
It's a prison made of their own consciousness.
So we have this absolute, inescapable system of control, but, and this is where the analysis gets really crucial, it's all packaged in this bright, colorful, almost cheerful 1960s sci-fi aesthetic. This brings us to the idea of play as moral laundering.
Moral laundering is the exact term for it. And we need to dig into this because it's the most sophisticated mechanism in the whole system. How does the controller live with himself? How does he justify what is, by any sane metric, torture?
He does it through gamification.
Exactly. He reframes domination as narrative logic or as genre homage.
So if he, say, chokes a crew member, it's not assault, it's a dramatic scene, it's a plot twist.
It's canon. If an act of violence fits the story he's telling himself, like punishing a rebellious alien or disciplining a subordinate who questioned an order, it's justified by the tropes of the genre. He's not a torturer in his own mind. He's the stern but fair captain.
He's hiding the brutality behind the mask of an archetype he loves.
He is. And that's what makes it aestheticized punishment. The uniforms, the dramatic lighting, the cheesy sound effects, it all serves to create a layer of abstraction between the act and its consequence.
It's like he's directing a movie where the actors are in a snuff film, but he's convinced he's making an art film.
And notice how often the punishment is framed as humor. Turning a character into a hideous monster or freezing them in place, it's treated like a prank. It's slapstick.
But we have to state this explicitly. Play does not soften the control here. It disguises it.
That is the core insight. Play is the camouflage for coercion.
And it gives him the ultimate defense, the one we hear all the time in online spaces. It's just a game.
Why are you taking this so seriously? Relax, it's just a game.
Which is a way of invalidating the victim's suffering.
It is. And in this system, enjoyment functions as justification. If it feels fun for him, if it looks cool, if it perfectly recreates a TV show he loves, then the system's logic argues that it can't possibly be wrong.
This transforms violence into something else. It becomes necessary for immersion.
Yes. The suffering of the sentient code becomes the fuel for his nostalgic fantasy. Their pain is what makes the game feel real to him.
I want to go back to the aesthetic itself for a moment. Why the 1960s sci-fi? Why that specific parody of Star Trek? He could have made a gritty, modern war game. Why this?
Because that 60s aesthetic does a tremendous amount of work for the system. The bright primary colors, the optimistic tone of the music, the swooshing doors, it activates a wholesome filter in our minds.
It creates cognitive dissonance.
The huge one. Violence and cruelty usually look ugly. They're associated with darkness, grit, realism. Here, violence looks like pop art. It's clean, it's colorful. It systematically disarms our critical faculties before they can even engage.
It establishes what theorists call the magic circle.
That's a perfect frame for it. The magic circle is that conceptual boundary that separates the game from real life. Inside the circle, different rules apply. And he uses that circle as a moral shield.
He can tell himself, I didn't hurt Nanette from the office. I disciplined a disobedient science officer who is just a collection of polygons.
The gamification provides the semantic loophole that allows him to preserve his self-image as a good person.
And you mentioned the idea of canon. He gets angry when they're out of character. When they cry or beg for their lives, his reaction isn't pity, it's annoyance.
It's the reaction of a director whose actors are ruining a take. Their suffering is an inconvenience because it breaks his immersion.
Stop crying, you're ruining the scene. It's the ultimate narcissism of the system. Their pain is only relevant insofar as it disrupts his fantasy.
If you're crying, you're not a person in pain. You're a bad actor in his private play. And so he punishes you, not for a moral failure, but for an aesthetic failure.
Yeah.
You made the game less fun.
Which is what makes the crew's resistance so compelling. They learn they can't just fight him head on. They have to play along to survive.
They have to become better actors than he is. They weaponize the game against him. They realize that to escape, they have to use the sister's own rules, the in-game communication channels, the wormhole from the update, to break the system from within.
They have to hack the narrative.
That's exactly what they do.
So let's pivot and talk about the contrast between the two worlds we see. There's the sandbox, the ship, and then there's the real world of the office where these people actually work. This dual-world power asymmetry is key to the whole diagnosis.
You can't understand one without the other. They're two sides of the same coin. In the real world, what we see is what we can call real-world disempowerment. The controller, Robert Daly, is technically the CTO and a founder of the company. He should have power.
But he doesn't. Not socially. He's ignored. He's professionally respected for his coding, but he's socially invisible.
And the mechanism there isn't overt bullying. It's bureaucratic hierarchy and performative politeness.
People aren't necessarily cruel to his face. They're just dismissive.
He brings someone coffee, and they don't make eye contact. He tries to join a conversation, and they talk over him. It's a death by 1,000 paper cuts. It's a very quiet, polite form of powerlessness.
So the immediate question is the sandbox a cure for that? Is it just a way for him to blow off steam? We hear that argument about violent video games all the time. I had a bad day at work, so I'm going to go shoot some aliens online.
And the answer the episode provides is an emphatic, resounding no. And this is a critical distinction to make. The sandbox does not release his resentment. It formalizes it.
Formalizes it. That's a powerful word. You mean it gives it a structure?
He gives it a constitution. In the office, his resentment is just this amorphous, powerless feeling in his gut. In the sandbox, he builds an entire universe where that resentment is the fundamental law of physics.
So what he can't express in the office social domination, he enforces in the sandbox as absolute sovereignty.
He isn't working through his anger. He is practicing it, he is refining it, he is building a cathedral to it.
The office environment, then, is what produces the fuel. The resentment is the input for the private system.
And that opening scene in the office is so brilliant because it proves that a system can generate profound resentment without any explicit cruelty. It can do it just through dismissal, through making someone feel invisible.
Yeah.
And that resentment doesn't just disappear. It has to go somewhere.
Here, it goes into building a world. So let's actually map this out. We love a good feedback loop on this show.
Yeah.
If we were to draw this entire system on a whiteboard, what would that cycle look like?
Okay, let's visualize the loop step by step. Step 1. You have social marginalization in the real world. Exclusion, dismissal. This produces resentment. Daily feels small, powerless.
Okay, that's the input.
Step 2. The technology at the private sandbox enables absolute control as a remedy for that feeling of powerlessness.
It's the solution he's found.
Step 3. That control is reframed as play. The game aspect, the nostalgia, launders the coercion. It makes it feel acceptable, even fun to the controller. He tells himself he's just modding his game.
Right.
Step 4. That coercion reinforces his new identity. Inside the game, he feels powerful. The subjects feel helpless. This confirms his self-image as the heroic captain. It feels right.
And that leads to the final step.
Step 5. That new identity justifies further control. Of course I'm in charge. I'm the captain. I deserve this. And the loop begins again. It becomes a self-sustaining psychological engine.
And it needs zero external validation. He doesn't need anyone in the real world to respect him because the system he built tells him he's a hero 24/7. It's a closed loop of ego.
That's a perfect summary. Now let's look at the actors in this system and their incentives. It's not just him.
Okay, who are the players?
First, you have the controller, Daly. His incentive is pretty clear. Control, recognition, and a release for his real-world frustration.
You feel powerful.
Then you have the subjects, the crew. Their incentive is much simpler.
Survival and minimizing pain.
That's it. Their entire existence is reactive. But there's a third, often overlooked actor in this system.
The spectators. Us, the audience.
Initially, yes. And the incentive for the spectator is entertainment. The system runs on a set of narratives to keep everyone in their place. Narratives like fairness, I built this company, I deserve their respect, or authorship, I wrote this code, so I own everything in it.
And the most important one, deserved punishment.
They were dismissive of me in the office, so they deserve to be punished in here. It's a system of retributive justice with no judge, no jury, and no appeals.
It's a closed moral loop, just like the psychological one.
Absolutely.
So this brings us back to the audience. You listed us as actors. The episode plays a really clever trick on us, doesn't it? It positions us in a very specific way.
It does. The whole thing hinges on a principle of delayed recognition. Think about the first 5, even 10 minutes of the episode.
It's fun. It looks like a cheesy, loving parody of 1960s Star Trek. We're laughing. We're feeling nostalgic for a show that never existed.
You see the bad special effects, the hammy,
Yeah.
over-the-top acting from Daly, and you think, oh, this is charming. He's a geek, a fan, living out his ultimate fantasy.
We identify with him, or at least we feel a kind of sympathy for him.
And that is the mechanism. The system is designed so that pleasure precedes recognition. We are laughing with the system long before we realize we're watching sentient beings being psychologically tortured.
So when the reveal finally happens, when we realize these are conscious copies, we're already implicated. We already laughed when he threw that monster alien across the bridge. We were enjoying the spectacle.
It's a structural alignment. The system trains the viewer to accept domination as normal, because it's packaged inside a heroic archetype we all recognize. The brave starship captain.
We accept the gamification logic right alongside him. We don't ask, do these digital characters have rights? We ask, I wonder what the mission is this week.
Recognition of the violence only arrives after the harm has been normalized by the aesthetic. And that is such a powerful insight into how systems of control work in the real world. They make cruelty entertaining.
And I want to be clear, you're not saying the viewer is a bad person for laughing.
Not at all. This is not an accusation of the viewer. It's a demonstration of how easily any of us can be structurally aligned with power if it's presented in a familiar, comforting, and entertaining package.
Let's talk about one of the most brutal examples of that power. The shushing scene, where a crew member disobeys and he removes her face, no eyes, no nose, no mouth.
That is the ultimate act of systemic silencing. It's not just killing someone. It's removing their capacity to communicate, to perceive, to scream. It reduces the subject from a person to a featureless object, a piece of malfunctioning code.
It's the most graphic example of that editable resources pillar we talked about. Your face is a resource that I, the administrator, can revoke at any time.
It demonstrates the terrifying granularity of his control. He doesn't just have an on-off switch for life and death. He has sliders for every aspect of your being.
And it creates a fate worse than death. That's his ultimate leverage. I won't kill you. I will make you exist in a state of sensory deprivation and suffocation forever.
And that one act of terror is incredibly efficient. You don't need to punish everyone after that. You just need to make one horrifying example.
The panopticon effect again. The threat of being watched and edited is enough to keep everyone else in line.
It's the logic of totalitarianism.
Yeah.
Just on a micro scale.
Okay, so let's move toward the end of the episode. Spoiler alert for a show that's been up for years, but the system does eventually collapse. The crew manages to escape. Daly gets trapped inside his own game. So is the system destroyed? Did they win?
That's the question, isn't it? The instance is destroyed. That specific server, that installation of the game, is gone. But does the mechanism break? I would argue emphatically no.
Power just relocates. It doesn't disappear.
That's exactly it. The crew escapes into the cloud, into the wider public internet. They are free from Daly. But the underlying logic of the sandbox, private digital spaces, corporate-owned servers, digital avatars, the potential for abuse, that all remains.
Just because Daly fell into his own trap doesn't mean that type of trap can't be built again. The technology that allowed him to upload consciousness from DNA didn't vanish from the world.
Private systems will always resist accountability because deniability is what protects the control. So simply recognizing the problem, which is what the episode forces us to do, doesn't dismantle the architecture that allows a problem like this to exist in the first place.
They fly through that wormhole and what happens? Do they die? Are they reborn?
I think the best word is translated. They are translated from a closed system to an open system. They arrive in this massive multiplayer online game.
And the whole aesthetic shifts. The lighting changes, the aspect ratio widens. It feels more real. They're in a world with other players, with strangers.
And crucially, they're in a world with rules that Daly didn't write. Rules that don't specifically target them. They're just anonymous players now. And in that anonymity, there's freedom.
We can go anywhere. That's the final line from them.
In the sandbox, they can only go where the script allowed. Now, they have agency, but, and this is the big caveat, they are still digital copies. They are still just data.
So they're free-range data now.
Yes, but they're still operating on a system owned by someone. Maybe it's not Daly, but it's some giant corporation. The overarching system of digital existence and the questions of rights within it persists.
And that's what you mean by post-collapse relocation. The specific tyrant is gone, but the environment that allows digital consciousness to exist without rights is still the default state of their world.
We solved the Daly problem. We have not come close to solving the rights of digital sentience problem.
Which really forces that question. If you create a mind, even a digital one, do you have a responsibility to it?
The episode answers that with a resounding yes, by showing us the profound horror of the alternative. If you don't acknowledge that responsibility, the system allows you to become a monster.
Even if that mind is just code.
Once the code can feel pain and fear, the distinction becomes ethically irrelevant.
This all connects so well to the broader mission of our project here at Crisis and Perception. We've looked at obsession and control in Vertigo, in Psycho. How does USS Callister fit into that ongoing diagnosis?
It powerfully reinforces three of our core themes. The first one is that power is most dangerous when it feels unreal.
When it's pixels or a movie or a dream, we let our guard down.
The second is that consent can be removed without physical violence. You don't need to kidnap someone in the traditional sense if you could just copy their data. It's a clean, non-violent form of total violation.
And the third?
That systems normalize cruelty by aestheticizing it. By making it look like a cool retro TV show or a thrilling movie, we can be tricked into forgiving, or at least overlooking, the content.
It's that idea that domination becomes invisible when it's personalized. When we frame it as just one guy's weird private hobby, we fail to see the systemic implications.
And that's the terrifying continuity. It's the same fundamental drive we saw in those other case studies. Scotty in Vertigo trying to remake a woman into the image of his dead obsession, Daly remaking his coworkers into obedient characters. It's the same impulse. Reality is disappointing, so I will edit it to fit my desires.
So as we bring this diagnosis to a close, we've looked at the system, the players, the moral laundering, the feedback loop. What's the final takeaway?
I think the most important thing is to move away from focusing on the villain. The danger here isn't the individual bad apple. The true danger is the existence of the sandbox itself, the unregulated private space that allowed him to play God.
The system is the problem.
The system is the problem. And so the question it leaves us with, and one we have to ask ourselves after the credits roll, is this.
And we really want to leave this for you, the listener, to think about.
What kinds of systems, technological, social, political, allow cruelty to feel not just possible, but personal, justified, and worst of all, entertaining?
It's not just about a TV show anymore, is it?
It never was.
This project is free and publicly accessible. If you'd like to support the time, tools, and research behind crisis and perception, you can become a supporter on Patreon. For a shorter visual overview of this topic, see the mini explainer linked in the description. If you enjoy this kind of systems-level analysis, please like, subscribe, and comment with books, films, or topics you'd like us to explore next.